My never I say ma PENDREAM TV. PENDREAM TV there. I see them yopo.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my brother Akuffo Addo, Honorable MP for Elembele. Let me acknowledge our chairman and my friend and brother Awlaya Tibrukusu, the third, who is the paramount chief of Lower Axem. Let me acknowledge our host, the chief of Nkroful, Nana Kwesi Kutua the fifth, and all our Nananom and Queen Mothers. Let me also thank Professor Samuel Akanya for the very emotional rendition he gave us of some of the things that happened after our revered first president, Dr. Nkrumah, was overthrown from office. And allow me to say, distinguished invited guests, fellow Nkrumahist, gallant sons and daughters of Nzimaland, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by commenting on a few things that our chief raised when he spoke. We all know we're in the campaign season, and so far I've been through 5 regions, and in every region the major complaint is about the road network. And so it makes me wonder that if a government claims that it has built more roads than any other government in the history of Ghana, and actually claims that it has built more than 12,000 kilometers of roads, then I wonder why every part of Ghana is complaining about roads. I remember in government, because of hosting the oil infrastructure here in Nzimaland, Professor Mills promised that we're going to invest some of the oil revenue to improve the social and economic infrastructure in Nzima area. And so we came with the oil and gas enclave roads, and we started to tackle all the roads in the Nzima area. It is just unfortunate that we did not finish before we left office, and a new government took over. And my understanding is that most of those roads have been abandoned, and the whole oil and gas enclave road project has been stopped. Nana Awulaimo, I want to assure you that a new NDC government that will come in January next year will resume the oil and gas enclave roads so that you can have roads that are befitting of an area that is hosting a very precious asset on behalf of the people of Ghana. And so you can be sure that the roads that you mentioned are roads that we will consider a priority. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply honored to be standing here on this hallowed land of Nkroful, the birthplace of a visionary leader, the nation's first president, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who shaped not only the history of Ghana, but the destiny of Africa. Today is a day that every Ghanaian must celebrate and reflect upon. Indeed, on 6th March, the hallowed declaration he made at the old polo ground, and I quote, "At long last, the battle has ended, and Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever." That declaration was an earth-shaking event and marked the beginning of decolonization in the world as we know it today. And so in joining hands today to celebrate the enduring legacy and the vision of this remarkable figure, we are reminded of the enduring transformative impact he had on our continent and the lessons that still resonate with us today. The man, Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was a man of unparalleled vision. When he declared that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent, many people did not understand why he would say this. But he was not only merely speaking for Ghana, he was speaking for the whole of Africa. His vision was a bold one. He dreamt of an Africa that was united in its political, economic, and social liberation. This is a vision we're still struggling to fulfill up to date, even half a century after he passed on. But Nkrumah's greatness wasn't in the ideals he held alone. It was in the tangible progress he made towards realizing those ideals. Under his leadership, Ghana became the first African nation to gain independence from colonial rule south of the Sahara. And Ghana became the black star of hope for other African nations. After independence, Ghana became the headquarters of the African Liberation Movement. Freedom fighters from all over Africa were given refuge in Ghana, and they carried Ghanaian diplomatic passports in order to avoid getting arrested when they traveled internationally. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah initiated a program of industrialization and infrastructure development that laid the foundation for what is today modern Ghana. He built factories, and my brother Kofi Boa listed many of them. He built roads, he built educational institutions, and a lot of the economic and social infrastructure that Ghana has today. And indeed, the iconic Akuffo Addo Dam, which still produces almost 30% of Ghana's power, is a testament to the vision of the man Kwame Nkrumah. These are some of the things that Osagyefo was celebrated for. And these infrastructure developments were not just symbols of a nation on the rise, but of Kwame Nkrumah's commitment to Ghana's economic independence. Nkrumah's legacy extends far beyond only infrastructure. His ideals of African unity, social justice, and economic independence are still pillars that guide progressive forces and thought across the African continent. All over Africa, Kwame Nkrumah is included in the educational curriculum of schools in African countries for the study of African history. Decolonization is recognized as one of the momentous events of the 20th century. And this is why Kwame Nkrumah was named as the African of the Millennium by the BBC. When you have identified as a Ghanaian, it is very common to have the name of Kwame Nkrumah mentioned when you travel anywhere in Africa. If you say, I come from Ghana, most likely the first name they will mention is, oh, Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. This always fills me with a sense of pride when I travel anywhere in the continent. Today we are reminded with deep sadness that the work Nkrumah started is not completed. The future Nkrumah envisioned, a prosperous, united Africa free from exploitation, still calls progressives across this continent to action. The liberation struggle is not over yet. But the question is, what happened? What or who truncated the vision and set us back this way? Before we can fully embrace the vision of Osagyefo, we must first dispel the divisive and needless debates that have recently intensified to try to obliterate his legacy. There are those who seek to dilute Nkrumah's role in our history as the nation's founder by introducing the idea of a Big Six. Let me be clear and unequivocal here. While many far beyond the Big Six being bandied around played significant roles in the independence struggle, Nkrumah was that critical catalyst that brought the struggle to a head and eventually resulted in the historic liberation of Ghana from colonial domination. The so-called Big Six were an accident of history and not a united force. And the historical record shows this. In fact, some of them actively opposed Nkrumah's vision for a rapid move towards independence. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, at the time the struggle for independence had crystallized, the UGCC, which was the party of the Big Six, was opposed to the granting of independence by Britain. And this is a historical fact. At the time Britain was getting ready to give Ghana independence, the UGCC, which was the party formed by the Big Six, opposed independence. They actually sent a delegation to Britain to present a petition to Queen Elizabeth not to grant independence to Ghana. How can such a reactionary movement now claim the collective honor as being founders of our nation? Indeed, on 7th August 1956, the UP, which is known as the United Party, which is a successor of the UGCC, opposed and walked out of Parliament when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was moving the motion of destiny, which was the declaration of Ghana's independence. On 7th August 1956, Kwame Nkrumah was Prime Minister and he was moving the motion for full independence for Ghana, and the United Party, which was a successor of the UGCC, walked out of Parliament because they said they didn't want to be part of the declaration of independence. And so how can people turn around now and say that they collectively were founders of this nation, Ghana? This false equivalence, by elevating figures whose contributions, while important, did not match the transformational and radical leadership that Nkrumah offered for Ghana's liberation, must be rejected outright. The hatred and bitterness harbored by those who disliked and hated Nkrumah still erupts from time to time, as exemplified in the recent outrage that was expressed by the whole nation at the description of Kwame Nkrumah in the derogatory term of "that's your Kwame Nkrumah." Sam Kwame Nkrumah no. Mr. Chairman, Nana Chairman, my brothers and sisters, history cannot be revised. No matter how you fill our children's textbooks with different versions of your history, Founders Day must be a day that recognizes Nkrumah, the leader who delivered independence to Ghana and whose vision was continental in scope. The next NDC government, inshallah, in January 2025, will seek to remove the distortions in our history and restore Kwame Nkrumah to his rightful place in the history of Ghana. I commend the people of Nkrumah and Nkroful for instituting this annual celebration in honor of the greatest African. To celebrate this great man, the next NDC government will recognize this festival, titled Journey to Nkroful, Let me take that again. To celebrate this great man, the next NDC government will recognize this festival with the title The Journey to Nkroful as one of the official events on Ghana's tourism calendar. This festival will become a Pan-African pilgrimage for progressives from all over the world to visit the birthplace of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Osagyefo's vision for Africa was clear. He saw a continent united politically and economically, one leveraging its resources for the benefit of its people. His call for Pan-Africanism was not just a rallying cry, but a blueprint for the future. In his eyes, political independence without economic freedom was superficial. He advocated for industrialization, education, and scientific advancement as the keys to African development. Today, the African Continental Free Trade Area stands as a testament to Kwame Nkrumah's foresight. Though we are still in its early stages, the seeds that he planted so many decades ago are beginning to finally bear fruit. It may be happening 60 years later, but this is an indication of the profundity of the man's vision. We must therefore continue to nurture these ideals of Dr. Nkrumah of working towards a future where African nations will trade freely amongst themselves with their own currency, pool their resources together, integrate among themselves as countries without borders that allow their people and goods to move freely without hindrance and stand tall on the global stage. Being someone who could see ahead, he also warned us of the dangers of new colonialism. We must remain vigilant and ensure that Africa's resources serve the needs of its people and not external powers. It was in tribute to the progressive ideas of Kwame Nkrumah that when I was president, I introduced the Visa on Arrival scheme for all Africans holding African passports arriving in Ghana, and also encouraged the return of Africans in the diaspora to come and settle at home. We must revive Nkrumah's vision in every aspect of our national life, and this means we must prioritize education, industrialization, and scientific research. It also means that we must tackle the environmental degradation that threatens our future, the reckless exploitation of our forests, reserves, and by some selfish persons for their own gain. We must work to make this cease immediately. We need to commit ourselves to the cause of Ghana, not just in words, but in action. As we stand on this holy ground of Nkroful, let us recommit ourselves to the ideals Dr. Kwame Nkrumah held. And let us build a Ghana and an Africa that truly reflects his dream of equality, unity, and prosperity for all. The dictum, and I quote, Kwame Nkrumah never dies, was taken literally by his enemies to mean that Kwame Nkrumah was laying claim to immortality. But 150 years after he was born, his mortal body may have gone, but his legacy and his memory continue to live on. Indeed, Kwame Nkrumah never dies, and long may his legacy live. Long live Nzimaland, long live Ghana, and may God make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much. Ghana must work more efficiently.
John Dramani Mahama, 24-hour Nkrumah power.
Nkroful. Abaina besa mausika. Na wodi aye juma maletum pon.
24-hour economy so fast woni bi no. Fa wa dream bra.
Mahama, why I take an foresee them out. 24-hour economy.
John Dramani Mahama. John Dramani Mahama. 24-hour economy. Ejuma Pankwa.
PENDREAM TV, Yamishia Opani Jumakesia, they be show on YouTube and all other social media platforms. It's Ramongo follow PENDREAM TV. Very fantastic talent, doing a lot of the channel.
Mamena PENDREAM TV ase. Now so far so good. Say open online portal e wo Ghana. Nipa share, nipa follow, nipa comment here. To my best of knowledge, without any biases, PENDREAM TV.